paper magic will survive like the heat death of the universe, and will...
Oh, it's a smuggler's copter. Would you like to crew this? And then it crashes because they don't understand arithmetic.
All your cards belong to me.
2 minutes into macing him in the eyeballs, I switched to pepper spray. He's like, it's all right, refreshing. And went back to the mace.
Magic is dying. I'm done. Selling everything.
I might be a hoarder. And yes,
I don't have the crayons or glue to explain this to you right now.
What, are you gonna die twice?
Oil will be worthless before magic cards will.
well, okay, Dr. Man.
That's Mr. Dr. Professor Jason. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Brainstorm Brewery. I am solo this little bonus episode. Corbin and Jason are not here. But I am joined by two very special guests who are joining me back from Vegas. Everyone was in Vegas this past week. And some of us had good experiences, some of us had bad experiences, some of us barely remember their experience at all, I'm sure. And we had a lot of controversy on the internet, and controversy is content, etc., etc. So I have two wonderful people to join me. You've both been on Brainstorm Brewery, the main episodes before. Ed, it's been a while. We'll have to have you back sometime soon. But we have Ed Nguyen, owner of Vermilion Games, and Kyle Lopez, co-owner of Card Rich and Through the Decades, which is a big local game store in Louisville. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for having us.
Good to be here again.
So, I mean, I just kind of mini introduced you, but how would you describe yourself in the industry? Just sort of like give me a little taste of like why I'm having you on and like what your role is in this coming back from Vegas.
Ed, you go first.
Yeah, so I've been on the vendor circuit for quite some time. I probably got my start the same way most people did. I played Magic at one point in my life. Playing Magic was just, to be quite frank, less profitable than being behind a booth, right? Selling Magic cards is what you want to do. I've been in the vendor world for a while. For my first Grand Prix that I vended was in 2015, I believe. And for anyone that follows me on Twitter or Facebook, I had mentioned in my post that I'm probably approaching 300 shows right now. Obviously, this is all Magic shows. But basically, my metric for any event was something that is widely publicized and probably something that people travel to. So this has ranged from Grand Prix. I've ended a Pro Tour. I've done U.S. Nationals. I've done SCG cons, Magic Fests, Command Fests. I've done sports card shows, anime cons, comic cons, etc. So I really the 300 events I've done really kind of encompasses the full scale of, I think, kind of what the collectible industry has to offer. And I've done this long enough that.
You've done this long enough. Is that the end of the sentence? Just you've done this long enough?
I've done this long enough, yeah.
I remember, what was it, 2018 maybe or something? I remember you getting a cake for your 100th GP or something. Was that it? I remember there was a cake involved for some sort of milestone event.
Yeah, there was like some weird milestone back then, but yeah.
300 is impressive, man. Like,
it is. I think
really
I
good.
might be at 50 maybe. That's like, maybe.
Yeah, I'm probably around there.
I will say I'm probably like 280. I kind of stopped counting after like 200 or something, but right. But like I'm like on a 7-week stretch. Vegas was like Vegas was my fourth show in like 7 weeks. I have this weekend I'll be in Dallas. Next weekend I'll be in Philly for SCG Con. The week after that I'll be
on Dallas Card Show.
For Dallas Card Show, yeah. The week after I'll be in DreamHack. Yeah.
All right. What about you, Kyle? What are you bringing to this table?
I'm a loudmouth, and I have been a part of a bunch of different things. I owned Aether Games in the past, sold out, and that became 95. I got out for a little while, and I got back in because it is what it is, right? And I met my current business partner, Alex, and my other business partner, Rob. Me and Rob go way back. He had a store in Cincinnati when we met, and we were kind of doing our own thing. We met Alex, and we kind of did a bunch of big deals together. And, you know, that was a really good partnership. And we just were like, what does it look like if we just kind of, you know, threw all of our stuff into one pot? And, you know, so now I operate the warehouse, like the shipping warehouse in the back of Through the Decades, which is a 20,000 square foot store. It's really weird to say because when you say 20,000 square feet, people are like, wait, what? Like most stores are like 4. It's unbelievable. Like I can't talk enough about, and it's mostly Alex's machinations. Like Alex has said that he wanted the store forever. We were like, if anybody can do it, you can. And he, pulled the trigger last year, and it's been phenomenal for us. We've been open in that location for a year as of like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So it's
awesome.
it's been really good. And we do kind of everything the store does. Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! Sports. We have Legos, any collectible you can think of. We have video games. We have figurines, all of it. It's definitely a destination. I believe we are the third or fourth largest collectible store in the country. We don't know exact. I know there's like one in Texas.
Right.
There's obviously Mile High Comics. It's bigger than us, but we're bigger than Mr. Nice Guy, which was at the time the biggest store that I'd ever been to. And then other than that, we have an events company called Card Rich, where we do collecticons, and next year we're going to expand into like Anime Expo and that type of show. We were looking at doing this show, Magic 30, but there were some kind of hang-ups on the new people running it, how it was going to be set up. So we unfortunately weren't able to do it the way that we wanted to. We had a couple other opportunities, but if I can't have my name on it, Card Rich, I'm not going to do it, right? So, I just got back like Monday, I think. Really early Monday. I have a lot of thoughts about it, which I've mostly talked about on Twitter, but I'm actually really curious to hear what Ed thinks about this, because he said he had a bad time, and I had almost. Well, yeah. No, I was on the other side of the booth. I had almost the exact opposite impression.
Yeah, that's why I sort of created this little meeting between us. You said on Twitter, "This is the best event I've ever been to," and I regret not being able to. I regret not vending it. I should have been here. This would have been insane.
I had goosebumps when I walked in. It was incredible. It was unlike anything I've ever seen.
And then Ed said, "This is the worst event I have ever been at in all of my 300 events." So that is a conversation that needs to happen, I think.
For sure.
So I mean, Ed, what happened? Like, what's the general, like, just the overview? Just start us off like a TLDR of like why this, because I mean, we were both working behind the same booth. From my perspective, I think the event went very well for our booth specifically. I've heard a lot of good things about the booth from other people's booths. I've heard mixed reviews from players. I've heard people had an amazing time. Some people had a bad time waiting for events. But I mean, you didn't play in any events. You were just behind the same booth that I was this weekend. So what happened?
So I guess like I kind of want to preface this. Like, I've known Kyle for a very long time, and like just because we disagree here, like doesn't necessarily like I'm not trying to like discredit anything he's saying. I'm not trying to discredit anything like Doug is saying. I don't want to discredit like anyone's experiences, right? Like this is like a full like spectrum. Like I've known Kyle like I think like back when I was playing Magic. Like I remember selling cards to Aether.
2014 probably.
Yeah, I mean, so we're talking like I've known Kyle for probably 10 years at this point, right?
Yeah,
so,
one of the reasons I was excited to do this is because I am genuinely curious about what he thinks, because I respect his opinion.
Yeah, so again, like just kind of like looking at this again, like I guess another like precursor to all this, right? Like from a business perspective, from our perspective, Doug, like yes, the booth did very well. I was behind the 2A Magic booth. We were the purple booth, kind of like right by the entrance to the right.
Oh yeah, we had the best spot in the room, I think, and
Absolutely.
I don't think that's debatable.
Yeah, almost surely had the best spot in the room. So like Doug and I, we were both behind the booth for the whole weekend. And again, like you mentioned, like from what just kind of like the internal metrics we have on the quality of the show, right? Like for those of you who don't have experience with it as vendors, we kind of measure realistically, like the quality of the show is how much you can buy, because realistically that's why most people are here. Most of us, we have no issue selling cards. A lot of us have TCG stores, other outs.
Yeah, cards sell themselves, but you can't just always buy cards or collections. You have to put investment in to go out and get those cards as inventory. Yeah. Cost of goods sold is one of the biggest challenges in this industry.
Exactly. And like going to these big shows is really why people are here. There are certain shows that are meant to be selling shows. A show at this scale, it's really meant to be a buying show. And again, the most fundamental metric is the more money you can spend, the more money you'll make. And this is
we had a line all weekend. So I mean,
you guys did.
And this is one of the things that scales up like exponentially. Like if you start with like $100,000, you'll make $100,000 on top of that. But if you have like $1 million, you're gonna make like $2 million. I'm spitting out numbers, right? It's just one of those things that scales up exponentially. The more money you have, the more buying power you have, and that just translates down.
Yes.
That just translates down the line too. So again, from that perspective, right, the booth was very good for us. The show was very good. It was very profitable. We had lots of very positive interactions with customers from the selling side. A lot of people were very happy with the selection we brought. We had a bunch of old school, a bunch of foils.
Yeah, but all the people I've talked to have had a negative experience have been players. There were people who were like, my event didn't fire on time. I thought I was going to be able to go to do this thing but I couldn't. I wanted to play with my friends in this one area, but I couldn't. But you weren't a player, so what was the negative on your end?
So I'm looking at it from like a holistic perspective, right? Because I like, if I'm going to provide feedback on something, right? Like if all I care about is how profitable it is, then of course, like the show is phenomenal, right? No one can argue about that. But just kind of having a lot of friends who were playing, a lot of people who partook in different parts of Magic 30, which I think is important, right? Because if Wizards is trying to, if Wizards is trying to pursue this event as being a true celebration of the 30 years ups and downs that Magic has to offer, we really have to look at it from every perspective, and we can't just look at it from a balance sheet, right? Like how much in the black are we?
But the worst event out of 300 is like, I can understand like, oh, there were some things that went wrong, but the worst event out of 300 is saying something.
Yeah, so like fortunately for a lot of people, right, there's a lot of invisible things that like us as like being vendors, we get to kind of see the inner workings, how things go on behind it. There were a lot of things that were wrong. Some people had started to kind of address it in the thread. There are some issues like I mentioned with like security and people like not like things not being properly enforced. I had to like just like, for example, just kind of lead this off. I had a very bad time just trying to get into the hall on Thursday morning or Friday morning. There were multiple drop-off sites for ride shares. So I was dropped off at one side. Yeah, that was handled
very poorly, yeah.
I was dropped off at one side, the correct side where the ride shares were supposed to drop people off. And then I had some colleagues that were dropped off on the other side, which you're not supposed to drop people off from. We were trying to find a way to get our badge. They basically refused to let us in despite the fact that Caffrey already had our badges inside the hall. And we basically had no way to get in without a badge. And again, all our badges were picked up. So I basically just started like yelling at like security guards that were just telling us the wrong thing because we were trying to get to them, they were trying to get to us. Caffrey was trying to figure out where we were because he went in a different way.
So it sounds like most of your complaints revolve around logistics and organization of the way the event was put on, from like a staffing perspective, or like just not that people were like trying to do the wrong thing. Obviously, I think a lot of people put their best effort in, but like just a lot of things fell apart from the logistics standpoint.
Correct. And again, a lot of it is like seemingly invisible, right? Because these aren't things that are like generally visible to the public, right? Like for example, like I've always had issues with convention centers that charge you for their labor. Like again, this isn't like a labor issue. This is
you guys had to pay for tables and chairs too, right?
Yes. So to put this for perspective, since most people don't know, Reed Pops is the one that actually handles the convention. So they're the ones that are responsible for like New York Comic Con. I believe they do San Diego Comic Con.
Emerald City Comic Con. They don't do SCCC. They Emerald City. They do Florida Super Con and the big one in Chicago.
Yeah. So was it E2 whatever, C2 E2 or whatever?
Yeah, C2 E2 and then PAX Unplugged too.
I haven't heard of half of these. I mean, you guys go to way more non-Magic stuff.
These are massive
than I
shows. These are like 100,000 plus person shows.
Yeah, so like Reed Pops, essentially basically whatever an organizer, because like most people that organize these events, they don't have the manpower to do this. And so it's basically outsourced to Reed Pops. And Reed Pops is a massive organization and they basically handle everything from renting the venue, basically putting up all the displays you see, organizing the people that put up those, like literally everything you see is basically at some point Reed Pops had to assign someone to put it there inside a show. That's kind of the long and short of it.
So, I mean, if they have all this experience and all of this, I guess, like, expertise in the industry, where did that break apart when it came to Magic?
Because I think Magic shows are fundamentally handled a very different way than a traditional Comic-Con is.
I can tell you I talked to her for a while, the one person that was in charge of, like, specifically the vendor booths, and she said this was by far the smallest space she's ever had to put something like this together in. She said she's normally given like 40, 50, 60,000 square foot minimum just for the vendors. She had 10 for this show. Like we got the floor plan like right away. We were one of the first people to reach out. She got back to us. She assured me, I mean, my business partner Alex is like, go big or go home. He straight up said, let's get 8 booths. And we were like, or 8 different, we were going to get a giant double booth, right? And she was like, oh yeah, we can absolutely do that. And then we were all of a sudden waitlisted, and she was like, "Oh, we actually don't have enough space for most vendors. Sorry, it all changed." Right. So she was like, I can tell you the biggest thing was the space. And she assured me the last time I talked to her that the space was going to be a lot bigger for the next shows. This was there was a lot of growing pains from what I heard on this show, because they had to do the giant stage, 2 of the giant stages. They had to do the World Championship stage and then the other stage, right? They had to have the merch.
One, right?
They had to have the
Commander
merch.
cosplay
Exactly,
one, right?
yeah. They had to have the merch. They had to have the giant, like the layers, which were so cool. Like, man, I like, from pictures, it doesn't really do it justice. But like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Ed, but like, when I walked in, man, it was everything I ever wanted from a GP.
I was very impressed. My bar for the weekend was very high, and I was impressed.
I walked in and I was like, this feels like I'm in the world of Magic. Like, that's how it always should have been. But yeah, I can say that like one of the biggest parts was that they didn't have enough space to do everything that they wanted to do. At least coming from what they had told me.
But that's an iterative problem. That, like you both said, that is something that, I mean, I don't know what your conversations with the staff looked like, Ed, but I mean, is that something that's fixable for next time? Are these events like doomed conceptually? Is the Magic convention just like inherently incongruent with these kinds of 100,000 person events you've been to, or is it like, is this something that they can iterate on and fix and improve upon for the next one?
So I think, like, I think you guys are kind of like, hit spot on. Like, again, like, conceptually the show is very cool. Like, visually there were a lot of very appealing things. Like, they did a very good job with the stage. They did a very good job with like all the pop-up displays. Kind of like when you walk in, there's like, the giant cards in front of you. There's the
full-size weather light,
the weather light, right? All those things. Like, again, it, like, aesthetically looked very nice. I think fundamentally this goes kind of like segue into some of the questions that we have here, but I think the nature of Magic events is kind of doomed to have a relatively low cap. Like, for anyone who's been to some of these like truly large events, like we're talking like Gen Con, New York Comic Con,
SDCC.
Emerald City Comic Con, right? SDCC, right? We're talking like 100,000 plus attendees, right? And I think like, so part of it is a scaling thing. I think those just naturally provide just far more attractions, as it were, for Magic players than like a Magic event ever realistically could. Right, because I think some people have mentioned that people signed up for badges, they were there all 3 days, and a lot of people were just kind of done after the first or second day, mainly because there were like, logistic issues. People couldn't get into events. What do you do when you go through all the vendors if you have no interest in watching World, right? Like, there's kind of an upper limit to how interested you can be, even if you're very into Magic, right? Like, realistically, how many things can you do that's just kind of not repeating itself?
There weren't a ton of big tournaments. There were like the main event, which was the beta draft, which was like 4 flights or whatever. I mean, like, if they have more space, they can run more tournaments. I think that's the biggest thing. But I think, like, to say that they're doomed, like, this is the biggest event that has ever happened for Magic. They had 10,000 plus tickets sold, right? The halls were slammed all 3 days. Like, you guys, man, I couldn't even talk to you guys at the booth for the first day because, like, you guys were, when I didn't talk to you, Doug, until what, Sunday? Like,
it was Sunday that we had an open chair.
I finally was like, hey man, what's up? Like, you guys were slammed the entire time, which is awesome. That's what you want, right? I think this is a really good step forward. I don't know how they're going to really like get this kind of reaction because they had Magic 30 going on. They were giving away the packs. Like, the only other real event I can compare it to is like Vegas 2015, where they released Modern Masters 2, which was, I believe, the largest event before this one.
I couldn't remember if it was 2013 or 2015 that was the biggest. I know one of them was 8,000, I think.
That was 2015. They had 6,000 in both of the GPs alone. That was the biggest event I had ever done. And I was like, there's no way they're going to top that. And they did, right? I mean, this one was way bigger. And there was no real tournaments. It was mostly just like Commander, like people playing Commander and stuff. I can say that one of the biggest gripes I heard, and one that I absolutely agree with, was like, if you pay $200 to get into the door, you should have some place to play casual Magic. Like, I understand like upcharging people to get into a tournament or whatever, but like, no tables to just sit around and play with my Warhammer decks that I brought with me is kind of egregious, right? Like, now, don't get me wrong. On the flip side of that, they should have been charging the whole time. They should charge for tickets to go to these events. You shouldn't just be able to walk into these events free. Magic players got away with that for like far too long. If they charge for a door charge and they get 10,000 people, right? Like, I heard a lot of arguments before the show saying like, oh, they're charging for the event, like nobody's going to show up. Actually, they charged a ton for the event, and more people showed up than have ever showed up to another Magic event, right? So it works. That allows them to like put all those resources into more staff, more judges, more tournaments, etc., more prize support, right? It's like if they charge for these things, the shows will be better. Like SDCC is like what, $700 for the weekend or something, or for 4 days. It's a lot. I think Emerald City is like $350 or something. Like all of these I mean, dude, we had that when we were young festival. Those were like $350 a ticket, right? Like this is an entertainment thing for a weekend that you're going to go to. Like you should have to charge for it. That's just how all of this works, you know. So
I can certainly like if I am not going to be good with numbers here, but just like on the rough math, like how much do you think all of those, the booths is the wrong word, but like the little scenes, like the Weatherlight, the Garuk Forest, the Eldraine Forest, how
much
the
they
new
cost?
Capenna Bar. Yeah, like what do you guys think those just cost just to have?
Oh,
there?
like $50K each at minimum. The woman said, like, when she was talking about it, she was saying, you know, these shows cost millions of dollars to put on, and you could see it. That was the really cool part. Is that at a GP, it's like you walk in, you get your stuff, you get your promo, whatever, you get your packs, you play in your tournaments, you visit the vendors. You know, if you made day 2, cool, whatever. There's side events going on, cool. Now the side events of GPs are a lot better than what they had here, but again, that was a lot of that was a spacing issue. But that was, I mean, the production value alone, man. Like watching game nights was really cool, and I don't do that sort of thing, man. They had real merch, you know, like I bought 2 hoodies. Like they had real merch, like quality merch, not like the trash you normally see, you know? They really went above and beyond.
On Friday, when I was buying cards, I heard people shouting like it was the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was game nights. Dude, they would play like they would play like a board wipe, and the crowd would go wild like we're watching a UFC fight. I was standing in the merch line watching it, which took an hour and a half to get through, by the way, because that's how popular the merch was. I was standing in the line watching game nights, and it was really, really cool. It was slammed. It's funny because like that picture of like the empty seats or whatever, those seats were empty because all those people were watching game nights. That's where everybody in the room was watching that. I mean, it was like overflowing into like the other areas for people to watch people play Commander on a big screen, you know? Like this is the type of stuff we've always needed to make this like cool. They're leaning in, they're making it like a real property, you know?
Yeah. So Ed, I mean, I think we tailed off a little bit there, but so you do think that this is salvageable for next year then?
I think there are certain elements that are definitely salvageable, right? Like you know, Kyle just kind of hit on the head there. Like the production is very good, right? Like if you're trying to scale it up, if you're trying to make Magic big, as opposed to just a bigger tournament, right? These are definitely all steps in the right direction. Having good quality merch that people want to buy, right? That's like really the trademark of a good Comic-Con. Every good Comic-Con is you always have like the gift shop, all these things that people come and try and get. The limited edition items, exclusives. SDCC always has the limited edition Funko Pops that you can only get there, along with like a million other things. BlizzCon always has things that you can only get at BlizzCon, right? Gen Con has like stamped merchandise. A few years ago, I did Gen Con 50, and again, like that's one of the things. They had like a bunch of stamped merchandise for basically every level of gamer, right? You had like Gen Con dice, you had Gen Con deck boxes, bags, backpack, like all these things, right? Like that's one of the things that like scales very well. Like production very good, a lot of things like the stage very impressive. There was a nice viewing area. You could watch a stream from TVs, you could stand there and watch it live. Again, like these are all production things that are very good, and these are all steps in the right direction. So it is definitely salvageable. And I don't think it's like completely doomed. I think a lot of the implementation and how they did it was just like completely missed the mark for me, the show.
You mean Vegas or the actual venue? Sorry.
What's that?
I said, you mean the location is in Vegas or the venue?
Both. So like Vegas is one of those places where it's just going to be a good destination. Like ever since 2013, Vegas has kind of established itself, like it has like this certain like mystique to it, like in like Magic, where people know like this is Vegas, right? Like it's always going to be that summer event that it's going to be. If you could only do one Magic show that year, go to Vegas, right? And I have plenty of friends that do that.
Yep.
Right, like the venue was obviously like not good. I was actually at this venue 3 or 4 weeks ago at this point. I was actually there for a Las Vegas card show. It was a sports card show. I was actually here. I walked in and I was like, oh my god, if like this is a miserable venue for Magic 30. The room was dark, right? The people that were playing in the back, the room was like, for some reason, like it had all the lights on, and for the front half of the room, like it was just like 30% as bright. I don't know why, and that was like one of the issues I had when I first went in 4 weeks ago. Like it's very far. One of the things when you run a convention is you have to kind of think about how many people are going to be traveling, the cost of people traveling, and like how accessible it is, right? Because like we talked about one of the things, right? Like yes, people are already spending like $350 or however much, $700 if you bought the Black Lotus VIP badge, right? Now you have to add like, you have to factor in airfare, a hotel. There's no hotels that are within walking distance at all. You can't.
I will
mine was the
100% agree
closest.
with you.
Mine was the closest. I walked there one day and it took me like 12 minutes, and I was like, I'm just gonna take a Lyft. And then I literally did my expenses for the show today. It was like $4,000 is what I spent, because my Lyft, every Lyft in Vegas now is $30, right? So like it was insane. Like I was at the Circa, which was like supposedly like a walkable distance, but it really wasn't. You know, you're right. Like it was, compared to the last venue where you could just like walk over from the main hotel they used to get.
Well,
it was
even
way
the
worse.
Westgate was like a mile. Like if you
but they
stayed
had
at
a
the Westgate,
tram. They had a tram back and forth at the Westgate. Yeah.
I think there was some accessible. Like if you wanted to be close, you could be close to the Las Vegas Convention Center.
Yeah.
And there were like a fair amount of hotels that were like technically within walking distance, right? But in the past, prior to this year, Vegas has already been
last year
June or something.
Sorry, last year we were at the Embassy Suites and we walked every time, and it was like 5-10 minutes. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, that was I remember.
Yeah, and again, like moving Vegas to like not in the dead of summer, like probably a good idea as well, or like to so
But
people.
even
Yeah,
that's
the
more
weather was
expensive,
great.
right?
The weather
even
was
that's
great.
more expensive, I think. The reason it's been in Vegas the reason it's been in July, August the past few years is because it's cheap, right? Like they probably paid more for the October show, I imagine, just because it's cooler and it's just nicer weather.
Yeah, you might be right. Because the weather was great.
It's possible, right? But Vegas does shows like year round, right? They host like many of the biggest conventions in the world. Like CES is held at Vegas every January.
SEMA was happening like the week after we left. It's happening
there's
right
like
now.
There's multiple car shows where they like, you know, bring in like quarter million vehicles like into these venues that happen multiple times a year, right? So Vegas is like not really short on availability. I think it's just kind of like the time that Wizards wants to present these shows.
So Ed, I already know how Kaya feels about this, so I'm gonna give you a chance before I go with him. What are your thoughts on how the Magic 30 packs were distributed, accessible throughout the event? Just what are your thoughts on that product as a whole? Because I haven't really seen much of your Twitter thoughts on the fact that like Black Lotus people got $1,000 in product. Like that was a big that made it to mainstream news on our way back. Like
that was crazy.
Walking through the airport and just like see an actual like Kotaku-esque news article of like Magic 30 players get $1,000 in product. Like that's big. Like what are your thoughts on that? As a convention, I guess, like from again like a logistical, like this is how conventions are run standpoint.
I think that's definitely one of the cool things, right? I think like the way that, you know, realistically these conventions pay for themselves is by charging entry. And like Kyle had kind of alluded to a little earlier, it's important that these conventions like charge money. It's because again, like in the past Grand Prix, like they're nothing big more than progressively bigger F&Ms, right? You're basically charging the entry fees for the event. That's what people are there for. They have no incentive to care about any other aspect of the event other than I'm in the main event, I play 15 rounds, either I walk away with some money and pro points or I don't.
So I'm not going to cut you off too hard. One of the best ways I heard, I guess, pre-convention Magic Fest described was by Michael Caffrey, the one that runs Tales of Venture. At those kinds of shows where it's like a GP or a Magic Fest or Star City or whatever you call it, the players are the product and the vendors are the customers, because the vendors are paying $10,000-$12,000 for a booth to be at that show to buy Magic cards. There's 20 Magic vendors there. That's $200,000 that Star City is netting compared to the $75 a person for the main event for 500 people, even 1,000. Like that's nothing. So like that's just such a dynamic shift of like the vendors are the ones that are the actual customers. They're the players of the product. We want to get players in here just so that they can sell cards to vendors, so that there's just heads in the room to do commerce, versus like you're charging $800 to get into whatever this is for the weekend, and then here's $1,000 of just stuff for you to just do.
Yeah, like all like in some sense, right? Like we're all kind of customers at the end product here, right? Like it's just vendors happen to be pushing around suitcases where Magic players are carrying backpacks, right? Like it's just the kind of scale of like how much you spend, right? Like we pay, you know, tens of thousands of dollars for our booth, right? Magic players buy a pass for anywhere from $200 to
right. In
$700.
this system, we're all the customers of Reed, Pop, and Wizards. Yes.
Yeah, so I think like having things like what they did for like the Black Lotus VIP passes, like that's very good, because it kind of creates, you know, we're gonna be honest here, like it creates a sense of FOMO, and I know like I can imagine that by the time Philadelphia rolls around in February, I believe that's public information, like that's out there, right? People know that Philadelphia exists, right? People are gonna be like, ooh, like is there going to be some sort of hidden product that exists?
More people will definitely sign up because of that. Yeah.
I mean, the Black Lotus VIP package, like that was the first thing to sell. That sold out like less than 5 minutes when it became available. It was like
super quick.
Right. But like the fact that people are being rewarded for spending this kind of money, like that's good for Wizards, right?
Yeah.
Like again, because if you want to produce something that's quality, if you want to have a brand that's going to be a $1 billion brand, you have to be able to reward people that are willing to spend money on your product.
Right, yeah.
And I think like this is a very reasonable way to do so, right? Like the fact that, you know, Black Lotus VIP registries basically got their pass for free, right? That's just kind of icing on the cake for them.
I did see a lot of I will say interesting takes on Twitter. I don't want to give too many rants on here because I want to get you guys' opinions. But I saw a few like sour grapes on Twitter of like, well, those people are the rich ones that can afford it. They how come they're getting all the free cool stuff? And it just gave me like student loan vibes of like, how come their student loans are getting canceled, not mine? Like
it I don't even know. Like, dude, what other hobby can you like buy into and then get like 60% of it back at worst case scenario? Like no other hobby is like this, right? If you go scuba diving, if you go like, I don't know, skateboarding, if you like to jump out of planes, or if you like to play drums, like it's just cost after cost after cost and you get nothing back, right?
Paintball,
this is made to get money out of, or even if you're good at it, like that's probably why a bunch of us got into it in the first place. Like that's why I got into it, because I figured I could make money doing it, and I was right. Like it rewards you in its own way, right? Like monetarily. So like, I don't know. In the last like 5-10 years, we've seen like a move away from like the finance aspect, which I kind of get, because it did get kind of like Wolf of Wall Streety like there for a minute.
Yeah.
And that's like that left a lot of bad taste, like the buyouts and stuff. I totally get that. But like anytime somebody brings that to my attention, I'm just like, look, there are opportunities where you don't have to be like a piece of garbage to take advantage of, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that comes out that's it's almost 100% going to go up, you know? Now there's a lot of risks that you have to think about, but like this hobby is very rewarding if you don't think about it as just like I'm sitting down with my friends to play a game. Now you can do that if you want to do that. That's great too, right? Like if you want, but at the end of the day, you can play for X years or whatever, and you can sell out. Like that's so many people do. And a lot of people just, they don't think about that when they think about, you know, the EV of whatever set's coming out. It just, I don't know.
I think there are a lot of people that wish Magic was a living card game and not a collectible.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's not a living card game. I got in an argument with that my mentions have been on fire this weekend. When I got in an argument with that over somebody, I was like, look, man, it's a collectible card game. Like, in order for it to be collectible, some of the stuff has to be scarce. That's just how it works, right? Otherwise, you can do like, it's funny, like Netrunner is my favorite physical card game on the planet, Android Netrunner. It's a lot of fun. It's very balanced. It was like, I think I bought my whole set for like $350, right? The whole thing, all of it. And it went out of print, and now it's worth $2,500 for the full set, right? But that didn't happen until it went out of print. It became scarce, you know? And that's what collecting is all about. It's not everybody's going to be able to get this stuff. Pokemon does this so well. And I know I went on for hours I could go on for hours about it, but I talked about it the last time I was here about Pokemon. But like, that's one thing that Pokemon does so well. Like, if Pokemon put on this event, they'd have 5 different exclusives. They'd have a Black Lotus exclusive, right? That automatically PSA 10 would be like $1,000. They'd have like your walk in the door exclusive. they would have like all these other ways to get exclusive cards and merch, and it'd be super limited. You better be in line as soon as the door opens, you know? And it's because people want to collect that stuff. And Magic's, they're trying things, but to me, it feels a lot of times they're just like throwing shit against the wall to see what'll stick.
So, I mean, I know you bought... You invested in one thing. You invested in one thing that you're hoping is scarce. You bought a bunch of the Magic 30 boosters. You had a kind of a viral tweet of you just holding an entire draft set of the proxy packs.
Yeah, I have it somewhere around here. Yeah, 24 packs. Yeah.
I mean, Ed and I were behind the booth all weekend. We were buying and selling them. The number was constantly changing. Like, the first ones we're buying in the room are $250. Like, we'll buy $250 a pack for the first set that comes up. So we paid $1,000. Then it went down. Then as we sell them, it would go up or go down depending on the quantity we had.
He said you guys went through like 100. I bought 24 from you guys, but he said you went through 100.
Michael sold 100 of those packs. A few to store owners like yourself. Many of them went to players who just opened them.
What were you guys selling them for? 3 to 4 is what I saw on the floor.
I think 3 was the max. At one point, we were buying for $175 out at $250. Ed, do you remember what? Like, is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I think like we always basically had an idea of like how many we had on hand at each time, because basically as soon as we bought them, they would get put out right away. I know towards the end of the weekend, Caffrey was kind of wanting to hold a few just to have on reserve, but basically everything that we bought got put out. And we could see there was a point when like the metal case we had was basically completely full, and then there was a point when it was really dwindling because you had people that like Kyle bought a bunch. There was someone else. He's a pretty big guy. He's a no person Magic community. He bought like 10 packs. Like a lot of people were just buying like 1 or 2 loose packs kind of with their orders just to kind of have the experience of opening it.
Yeah, it's funny. Honestly, we didn't buy them because we think they're going to go up or anything. We bought them because we have a 20,000 square foot store and they're going to do well in the store, right? One of the things Alex wants to do for anybody in the Louisville area, we're going to do free standard events, because standard is just really difficult to fire, and first place is going to get a pack. Like, that's like free entry. First place gets a pack. Like, that's what he wants to do, right?
A pack of Magic 30.
Of Magic 30, yeah. So that was partly why we bought him. He wanted some for personal. I wanted some for personal. And then you pointed out that we bought 20, and you're like, 24, 4 more, and you get a draft set. I was like, sure, why not, right? Because that's another thing we could possibly do. We've been kicking around the idea of, like, I don't know, streaming like a draft or something, because we know enough people that would want to do it, right? And I don't care if they pay like what we paid for them. It's just cool to like, it's beta, dude. Like, everybody
not the best draft format from what I've heard.
Probably not, but that's because the lands were very scarce. But everybody who says that these cards are fake, they can't see the forest for the trees. There's fake as IE and CE, which go for thousands and hundreds. There's fake as World Championship cards, which Gaia's Cradle last time I checked was $250. They're that fake, right? They're playable in every commander deck on the planet, right? What tournament can you play Mox Sapphire in? A vintage tournament. So none. How many vintage tournaments fire off in a year? Like 3. So, you know what I mean? These cards are going to be played in every cube. Any powered cube is going to buy the shit out of this set. Like, I just think people are just real short-sighted about it. I understand the way that the predatory nature of the booster model was kind of bad. I understand why. I think if they would have done $1,000 set and you got all of it, there would be less feel bad, and they still would sell a ton of it. But
then it's not scarce, right? Then like
then it would also,
then the Black Lotus is like $200 because the total product value of the cards in it have to add up to roughly what the product is, assuming they print a bunch of it. And then it's like you have a $100-$200 Black Lotus, $50 dual lands,
right? Yeah, $20
which I understand is people are listening to this and saying yes, that's what we want, but like that's not part of the model.
Well, the other thing is like, you know, the chase cards are the old border stuff. Like, by every metric, the old border power is going to be thousands of dollars. Like, Filippo had one he bought, and he put it in Adam's case for, it was $1,000, man, for an old border ruby, right? There was an old border time twister floating around that I saw that was like $1,500. Like, that's the real number for those cards, because they're going to be played in old school tournaments, and that's like they're going to be super, super rare. Like, by all metrics that I've seen, there's going to be less power, including old, including new, like a third of the printings of IE and CE. So we're talking about less than 5,000 sets of power, like all in. from this set. And that's if they sell like 50,000 units, which we saw, what, was it today that they released was it today or yesterday that they released the Secret Lair, the Magic 30 Secret Lair? And it's sold out.
Yesterday morning.
And it's sold out.
Yesterday.
Yeah, it was yesterday. It's been a whirlwind being back. So they sold out in what, an hour? Like something like 35,000.
I think it was 12:47 is when I saw that it was sold out. So it was under an hour that sold.
The number I saw of the units was 35,000.
That's the rumor.
Yeah, because with the way that they release this stuff, it's just like Yeezys and stuff. The exact amount because it's loaded on the back end. So we're gonna know how much of this is printed, right? That information is gonna be public. So if they load up 1 million sets of these, right? I could be wrong on all of this, but I seriously doubt they're going to do less than or more than like 100,000 tops. And if they do that, it's less than half of the IECE based on pull rates, right? So this stuff's going to be super, super scarce. It's a fantastic set. People are going to play it. People are going to get like ridiculed by dummies who care what other people play in their decks. Like, whatever. Like, these are real Magic cards. Like, they're real Magic cards. You just can't play them in vintage tournaments that don't exist, right? Boo-hoo.
Ed, I know you are somewhat phased out of Magic. I don't know entirely how detached you are from the game at this point, but I mean, are you as excited about this as Kyle is? I'm probably in the middle, but
so I think so again, like I mentioned earlier, right? If Wizards is going to establish itself as like $1 billion brand, you have to have something to show that makes your brand is worth $1 billion.
You have to have something that gives you a Kotaku news article.
Exactly, right? Like if I offered every Magic player the opportunity to buy a Ferrari for the price of a Camry, right? Like, you would be insane to not jump on it, right? But like, what does that do to the value of Ferrari? It completely devalues each individual car. It devalues the brand Ferrari, right? Like, Ferrari is known for like hand stitch a ton leather on the interior, right? Like, very like superior engineering, like all these things. And this is just one piece of it, right? Like, you can still play, right? There are still formats available. There are still accessible things. I'm not going to deny the fact that I think, Kyle mentioned it perfectly. The fact that this is distributed in boosters, like, it's slightly predatory. We've seen issues with like
the word "slightly" is carrying a lot of weight there. I will say
it is definitely predatory, right? But it's all a matter of context, right? Like, Magic players aren't like. 5 years ago, the concept of a booster pack that cost $25 would be completely foreign. Collector boosters didn't exist until Throne of Eldraine in 2019. Right? But like but again, it's all a matter of perspective. You coming from someone who buys and sells sports cards, Panini, they're one of the biggest distributors. They have their top end, like the collector booster equivalent of sports cards. It's called National Treasures. It is one box. The box contains 8 cards. And that box sells for like $6,000 to $9,000.
Yeah, that's if you can get it for retail too, which you can.
That's if you can get it for retail, right? The resale on this, like 2018 has like, for basketball, it has like some of the best rookies that are playing from that year, right? Like Trae Young, Luka Doncic, right? They're from 2018. That was their rookie class, right? Boxes are well over $20,000 now. Jeez. And you can open up like one of the cards, the National Treasures RPA for Luka Doncic, one of one. That sold at auction in 2020 for like over $4 million, right? And that's how they continue to sell this product that is $6,000 to $9,000 per box, right? And this is like, is this necessarily good that we have this like precedent? Like, people are gonna buy up $250 booster packs? Debatable. Do I sympathize with people who aren't going to be able to readily access this? Absolutely, right? The same way I sympathize with people who can't stomach spending $700 on a badge again for the weekend, like $1,000 in expenses, flight, hotel, wherever to get there for the weekend, and then spend another $75 to $150 on top of that for events to play this weekend. I completely sympathize with all those people. But again, like I keep mentioning this in my Twitter posts, right? Like, Wizards is here to make money. And this is simply one of the things they're going to do along the way to make as much money as they can because they have shareholders to answer to.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate reality.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do want to say that it is as frustrating for people who, like I said, I feel for the people who want to be there and can't, and who are in a really frustrating financial situation. But I don't think that the designers and the people who promote this kind of celebration are only looking out for the whales, right? I don't think that they are just only like just looking over all the people trying to celebrate for an affordable way and being like, oh yeah, we'll just take the 750 people, that's fine. Like they did the secret lair. Clearly the rollout was not the way they intended it to.
A lot of that was scale fast problem.
Yeah, but like that's a $150 product. Yes, I know a lot of people weren't able to get it. Maybe they should have reduced the max quantity people could order. You could only order 10 of the Here Be Dragons one. That one was limited edition. This one you could order 30 of.
30 of them, yeah.
Like, maybe they should have limited. There's a lot of things they could have done there. But they're also doing the 1-a-year Magic promo at your game store. You can get, like, the Sarah Angel, the Findhorn Elves, the Shivan Dragon, the Ball of Lightning, all the way up to whatever they haven't announced yet. Like, that's a celebration thing of Magic 32 that they're trying to appeal to the more broader player base.
Yeah, a big argument I saw was like, oh, well, this is the only thing they're doing, and you're right. Yeah. Like they did a ton of stuff. That was the one that you wanted to pay attention to.
And Wizards messaging is not the best.
They're terrible.
The stream that we all watched where they announced this huge $1,000 product, it's like, oh, Brothers War, oh, this cool stuff, Magic new Phyrexia again, like this huge. The weird Marvel storyline's a bit off, but like the concept is there of this building, this world building, and it's like, oh, this secret lair, this 30th anniversary secret lair, and then they just like pour hot lava over all of it with like this like nuclear bomb they drop into Twitter, and it's like, oh, by the way, $1,000, see you, bye, stream off. It's like, okay, the messaging is off, but like,
well, it's one thing I keep going back to, which is like Wizards like doesn't really understand their customer base anymore. Like they could be telling really cool, interesting stories with all these planeswalkers, but they refuse to because they're trying to appeal to like 12-year-olds like, still, right? Like when I was 12, I started Magic, but that was 30 years ago, you know, like almost. Like they're like it's if you looked in that room, it was mostly like 30-year-olds in that room. They could be doing cool adult stuff and appealing to the adults that actually play and care about the game and telling cool stories, but they just kind of don't. And like they don't they're doing all this like collectability stuff, but a lot of player base doesn't care about collectability, right? So it's like they take the wrong feedback. Like one I always go back to is Metamorphosis, right? They were going to change standard. They were going to change standard rotation. They designed sets around this, and then people freaked out over Twitter, like 500 people, and they just went back on it.
So like, for context on this, this is Battle for Zendikar standard, I want to say. Yeah. They originally designed several sets so that standard would rotate twice a year because some of the player feedback at the time was standard, it gets stale. Like the last 6 to 8 months of standard are just boring. They're the same cards, the same strategies. I'm sick of Gideon Ally of Zendikar or whatever being in standard for too long. And then so Wizards they spent a lot of time on this project that was designed. They designed
sets around it, like Kaladesh and Aether Revolt, and I believe Eldritch Moon, or the one before that, Innistrad 2.
Shazor Innistrad.
Yeah. Those were all designed with this in mind, right? So then when they changed it willy-nilly just because like they were, I don't know, they listened to the wrong feedback, it made standard miserable. And it could be argued that standard's been miserable since then, so like they like weirdly, my biggest criticism is it feels like they don't have, they're in a rudderless ship, they don't have like leadership to say, we're going to do this. We're going to not listen to the people. They're going to like it because it's kind of what always happens, right?
Is Magic 30 in Vegas a sign that ship has a rudder now? The event was too small. The hall was too small. Events didn't fire. There were a myriad of things wrong. Is this event conceptually a sign that things are going in the right? The weather light is turning in the right direction.
In my opinion, I've never felt more that that's the case. I feel hopeful for the first time. You know how vocal I am about Wizards, man. I don't shut up about it. But like, I honestly feel hopeful for the future of Wizards and Magic for the first time since I can remember. Since I started Aether Games in 2013. Like, I honestly do.
Wow. Ed?
I definitely agree with Kyle here. I think like as much as I bash on Magic, right? Like it's one of those things where like, am I really in touch with it anymore? Not really, right? I think this is a lot of, they're doing the right thing. But again, I sympathize with the fact that as I keep repeating, they have to look at their bottom line first.
Yes.
But I think fundamentally what they're doing here, a lot of these things are very good. I think if they had a do-over for Magic 30 and they're able to adjust a lot of the shortcomings that they had, I think like it would be a very, very good event. And I think it would be one of the things where they can create something where people would be excited to show up again in February for Philadelphia or whatever.
Because they did kind of jump the gun a little bit on the celebratory stuff, because like the 30th anniversary of Magic is August of next year. So like this is a 7 or 8 month early birthday party for Wizards.
Yeah, I think when they came out, they said it was supposed to it'd be a year-long birthday culminating on, next year.
Yeah, so I mean, there is still room for them to create those like celebratory moments and make the Magic 30 thing. There's probably some crazy event that happens in the summer of next year that we're not aware of yet. So there are still like big events and stories to tell, and like this, Vegas was not the culmination of Magic 30. It was supposed to be. It's intended to be the start.
Yeah, that's the impression I got talking to the tournament organizers too. Was that like supposedly they're gonna have like new sets and stuff? Like it's not just gonna be the same stuff over and over again. So that's pretty cool. Like if they don't have a giant fuck off Elishnorn, like what are we even doing? Like when the new set comes out.
I don't remember what show it was, but one of the coolest things I ever remember Wizards doing for the past 7 or 8 years or so.
I already know what you're gonna say.
What is it? What are you gonna say?
I believe you're gonna say the giant Eldrazi they did. It was PAX. Yeah, I think it was PAX.
It was a PAX event. It was for Battle for Zendikar.
There's a giant arm that came down on like a police car, which also
it was Ulamog smashing a cop car. It was incredible.
Yeah, it was.
There's also a very good one. I think, but I want to say it was like GP Detroit. I think it was like during Eldrazi Winter, they had previewed Shadows over Innistrad by basically having like a cathedral in the corner of the room, and there was like a giant Avacyn like in front of it. And I think I didn't actually go inside because there was like constantly a line at it, but like inside they would like actually like start spoiling Magic cards. I think that was like kind of their first like.
Yeah, they had like Christine Sprankle dress up as Avacyn for
that was Vegas. Like, that was actually Vegas.
Oh
right?
Really? No, she did it for that show too.
Yeah, she did it for that show, but I'm pretty sure like Detroit, like I'll have to go through my photos, or maybe someone can help me out.
No, I was there. I believe it was Detroit. It was Detroit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure because it happened during Eldrazi Winter.
Yeah,
because it was a modern tournament, and this was before Shadows and Eldrazi.
Okay, so that must have been she dressed up as like regular Avacyn, and then Vegas debuted the evil.
Yeah,
Avacyn,
the evil
Avacyn.
One. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think that was the case, and that was also like they like indirectly spoiled cards by basically having like little puzzles you could do inside a cathedral, and like people were walking away. Like that was how Relentless Dead got spoiled, because I remember seeing like someone carrying like an oversized Relentless Dead card like as a prize or something for doing something related to
it was
that.
Like a true dungeon at Gen Con, if you've ever done that, which is like a live action D&D campaign type, but it was like a very small version of that. It was really cool. I mean, that's the stuff that we've always been missing, right? It's like at the GPs, it's like that's why when I walked in I was like holy, like wow, like I was blown away, and I had goosebumps, man. I was like, this is incredible. Like this feels like I'm walking onto Dominaria, and that's how it always should have been. If you're gonna do this content and you're gonna like, now they need good stories. Let's see some good stories. Let's see some TV shows. Even if they're bad, just put content out.
Yep.
Be consistent with it. Build a world, but like, let's see some cool stuff.
I will be viscerally upset if they just like, oh, Johnny's fixed now. He got his boo-boos
don't
fixed.
tell me.
Like, then we found the cure for Phyresis. It's all good.
Yeah. Like they channel Fireball the Eldrazi. Oh, that was so awful. But it was bad. But even still, like build the world, do interesting stuff. They did the comics, even though they're not like canon, which is like, what are you doing? But like the comics were a good start. It feels like we were talking about earlier. It does feel like they're finally kind of taking steps to like do some of this stuff, and they're turning a tanker. Like this is a giant. It's got a board. It's got shareholders. They can't just go like, okay, we're gonna go on, unless some giant a-hole just buys out the entire company. He's like, okay, now we're gonna do it like this. I'm gonna take it private. The only way that they can change these things is like by committee, which is just
No one would
Very,
spend
very
40
slow.
Kyle, no one would spend $44 billion just to own a company and do random things to it.
No one. Well, he might not be a person, so. Yeah.
Okay, so I have one more question for the both of you. This one is was submitted into my DMs a few hours ago. I realized neither of you are Magic players. I brought my Gonti deck to the event just for the, the spectacle
For the
of it.
lols.
For the lols. Let somebody bridge shuffle it and spread con crud all throughout the show. If you, I guess the preface is, if you played Magic still, what is your ideal commander deck to bring to a Magic convention? What would you bring to play at a GP / convention / Magic Fest / whatever?
Well, I did bring the 4 Warhammer decks, but I didn't get a chance to play. But that's also because I'm like a big Warhammer lore head, which I've gotten into Warhammer lore like 3 years ago, and I realized that like every sci-fi property that you've ever heard of just stemmed from Warhammer, like all of it, or like literally Warcraft, Starcraft, all of it is just rehashed Warhammer stuff. And Warhammer is just like, it's one of the reasons why I'm like, Wizards, what the hell are you guys doing? Just do what Games Workshop does, make compelling stories, like make compelling characters, but yeah, like that, I think that's one of the best products they ever made. It's a really cool tie-in. Apparently they're really balanced except for the Chaos one, which sucks because I'm a big Chaos fan. So that would be my answer. It's just because like you got 4 of them ready to go and they're pretty well balanced.
Sure.
I think ideally I'd probably bring like something that just like falls on like a 6.5 or 7 on the power scale. Just it does something durably, kind of embodies what Commander does, right? Just we're like, it's never gonna get crushed. It's probably never gonna crush people, but it's just kind of just a very middle of the road vanilla, I guess, as it were, commander deck.
Would you have fun? Assume you are not allowed to profit on the event. Assume that you are not allowed to make $1 while at the event, and you have to attempt to have fun. Would you have fun with a commander deck?
Yeah, the last time I played Magic was like in any kind of real capacity. I played Commander with Andrew McGreeny and his friends that he puts together at Gen Con, and we all got drunk and we played Commander, and it was a lot of fun. Alcohol has to be involved, though.
I think the last time I played Magic was like, it was actually earlier this year. I think Caffrey actually built a Dan stack, so I was playing Dan at the booth at one of an SCG con.
One of the slower SCG cons.
Oh, yeah, like one of the slower SCG cons. I think we were doing it there, but prior to that, I don't think I played Magic in like probably 4 years at this point. So
yeah.
All right.
Like, would I have fun? I don't know. I would probably have to like read every single Magic card.
Yeah,
because there's so
and
many
now
that
they're
come out
like
now.
every Magic card's like 7 lines of text, so it takes forever. I don't even really read spoilers anymore because it's just like there's 19 things going on, dude, and there's 2 sides of the card. Like
I mentioned, card's good enough. Yeah, I mentioned this on Twitter, but every event now, when somebody brings like a giant 1 row of commander cards, I'm like, please tell me you have a collection tracker. Just tell me what I'm supposed to pay on this.
Yeah,
I don't want to do this.
44
I'm gonna
cents
put every
this
card
year.
in the quarter pile. Like,
yeah. I just did a Magic buy where I literally was like, "What are these cards?" Like, there's so many like random commander cards that are just like, "Is this card?" And you read the text and you're like, "This card's either $40 or 40 cents." There's no in between, right?
Yep. All right. Well, I want to thank you both for coming on to talk to me about this. I realize that it's been a very hectic week with Vegas and traveling, and Ed, you're probably on the road tomorrow again, flying across the world or something like that.
I leave in 12 hours.
Jeez. Okay.
I've yet to pack. I still have to do laundry. I still have to do like a million things.
Where can people find you on Twitter while you are sitting in the Delta Sky Lounge? Where can people find you guys on Twitter, Facebook, whatever, Instagram, your store website, maybe?
People have questions. I had mentioned that I had so many people ask me about this, like in response to like I posted this both on Twitter and Facebook. I'll probably do a short write-up, just kind of go into a bit more depth about some things we talked about here and try and like answer some questions or provide some more thoughts that we didn't get to. But realistically, most of that I'll probably post on my Twitter, Ed Nguyen 13.
Sure.
And then me, so you can find me on Twitter at Bash McAllister. I'm also on Instagram at Bash McAllister. We also have our events company has an Instagram called @cardrich.io. That'll also be our website pretty soon. We're actually in the process of designing it. It'll mostly be like high-end slabs and stuff like that. But you should really just check out our store Through the Decades in Louisville. I'm going to go ahead and say it's the best store in the country, just because I'm I'm really proud of what Alex has been able to put together. And like, somebody in one of the Discords was like, so like, what's you guys' dynamic? We have 3 partners, and it's mostly Alex is the Godfather. Rob is the Godfather's son, and I'm Tom Hagen, right? I'm the consigliere. So like, really, it's Alex comes to me and says, "What should we do?" I say, "I think we should do this," and then Alex is the guiding force behind that store. That store it's unbelievable. And like, if you're within an hour, 2, 3 hours drive, and you're like, I want to see the best store in the country, it's worth visiting. It's Through the Decades in Louisville, Kentucky.
I am very much looking forward to stopping by when I'm in the
Hell yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm usually in the warehouse in the back, but if anybody wants to see me, just ask for Kyle. I'm usually there.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks
Anything
for
else you
having
want to plug, Ed?
No, I think that's good. Doug, thank you for having us as always. I'm sure I'll have plenty more questions to answer for people on Twitter and Facebook.
We will probably have you on Brainstorm Brewery again soon. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. This is DJ with Brainstorm Brewery. Check out our YouTube channel. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/BSB. We have a Coalesce gift code if you're looking to buy shirts and stuff for the winter, hoodies to keep you warm through these climate change apocalyptic months. Gift code Brainstorm Brewery. You can use it on anything, not just our merch. Shivams, Ristic Studies, all the good people on Twitter. We'll have an episode out this Friday. This one is a special one. We're trying to do more of these. Thanks so much.